Hello everyone and welcome to Control F, an irregular show where I take a closer look and share with you my findings and thoughts. The keen of you may have noticed I did not cover the Heavy Grail in the most recent This Week in Keyboards, and that's because I didn't necessarily feel that a 30-second to 1-minute blurb was really enough to say what I think should and needs to be said about the Heavy Grail and our path to it. Because in fact, the Heavy Grail may be the Topra Holy Grail. So what is the Heavy Grail? The Heavy Grail is Ryan Norbauer's aftermarket upgrade housing for the happy hacking keyboard, which is more commonly known as the HHKB. Before we get directly into the Heavy Grail, let's get into how this project came to be and why this is something amazing in this hobby, because this has been quite the adventure and quite the path. HHKB, the Happy Hacking Keyboard. The professional 2 line of HHKBs came out on June 15th, 2011. These boards resonated strongly with the mechanical keyboard community, from putting Topra in a league of its own to repopularizing the Unix layout of having control where caps lock is and influencing the popular MX HHKB layout. The effects felt by this keyboard are numerous and still felt today. The HHKB Pro 2 found popularity at the right time because this was the cusp of when 60% started to get very popular due to the Poker 2 a couple of years later. This is where the early modding scene for 60% and the whole hobby really started to kick off. But maybe that's a story for another episode. During this time, in the early to mid 2010s, people started modding their HHKB Pro 2s. I distinctly remember buying an HHKB Pro 2 in person from Elite Keyboards since I got a sick $20 discount for buying one with a scuffed box. A month or so later, I went to work with some Mkawa Thin Loop. Ooh, that's a throwback. For those who are wondering, my first HHKB was a black HHKB with blank black keycaps, and it was super slick. That potential became even slicker in 2014 when Cooler Master released the Nova Touch featuring MX Topra sliders for the first time, which immensely increased the potential held within the HHKB. Around this time, Hypersphere rings were becoming very popular, despite their kinda high prices because they were infinitely better than O-rings, but still cheaper than just buying a HHKB Type S. While we have amazing options for silencing rings these days, like the Desky Topra rings, we still haven't done much better in the MX slider department than the Nova Touch. So with all of these in mind, so many people started to harvest their Nova Touches to throw MX keycaps on their HHKBs, which got even more people into the idea of lubing or applying silencing rings to their HHKB, since, hey, if I'm going to open up for these sliders, might as well throw some lube on, and suddenly more and more people were modding HHKBs. And at the same exact time, 60% keyboard modding was on fire. People were buying their first GMK keycap sets, buying Taihao Sunset or Rainbow or Miami, Vortex PBT sets, Signature Plastic group buys were still a thing, and much more. People were changing out their poker cases with text cases and cases from all sorts of other manufacturers and group buys and options at this time. As people started upgrading their aftermarket cases, many felt that the plastic case of the HHKB could be improved upon. People started putting 2 and 2 together, and whispers of the idea of an HHKB aftermarket case became louder and louder. But despite the usual course of, it's too expensive, it's impractical, or flat out impossible, this notion was still a dream people wanted to achieve. The first attempt for an HHKB case was by Massdrop in October of 2015 with their CNC aluminum HHKB case. Described as a red brick, this didn't come to fruition. It did not meet MOQ, and it was honestly not ready for the market. Geekhack user Captain Badass received the prototype to review and provided a plethora of pictures and some typing sounds alongside it. Overall, the captain reported that the board is really loud with a hollow sound. This is due to the case being oddly deep and hollow, despite having space to cut down on. It failed to meet its MOQ in October and cemented its fate. A short time after the failed group buy, Andy, aka Living Speed Bump, who was running KeyChatter.com at the time, received the prototype from the captain and did a great write-up on the case. And based on his post-mortem, whew, thank goodness this case didn't come to fruition. Issues included pinging of the keycaps by hitting the case, the lack of any angle in the case, the fact that the screws were completely custom sized that made them near impossible or impossible to replace. Andy did a very good job laying out a plan for the future, including fixing the shape of the case, having the plate be plastic instead of metal, and providing some angle to the case. Unfortunately, these plans were never actualized, and this project is dead. During 2016, our pickles were tickled when RamaWorks unveiled a render for an HHKB mod kit. Let me just read to you how crazy this idea was. A palm slider tray, custom molded rubber feet, a titanium exterior frame. Remember, this was 2016 RamaWorks, the RamaWorks that still worked with mass drop, and the RamaWorks that would, in a few months, embark on their journey through the M65A with KeyClack. As far as I know, no prototypes were made, and all of these are just left as renders for us to salivate over. Damn, because those look great, and they definitely have that RamaWorks touch to it, even as far back as 2016. Despite the HHKB mod kit and HHKB aluminum case never coming to fruition, this helped you further inspire thoughts and ideas on how this might be possible. We could, nowadays, easily make Topra plates, but that would require people to have to source a PCB and keycaps from an HHKB, and then slider housings and sliders from a real force. Suddenly you start realizing sourcing 2 boards at $200 a pop before buying a case and plate for another $300+ isn't the best idea. The best idea would just to be have a case that you can move all the parts from your existing HHKB right on over to. Well, despite that, not everyone was deterred by the more keyboard-intensive option. For example, Zanda is currently working on the Evilja? Unveiled to the world in October 2019, this is Zanda's HHKB case, and it will require 2 donor keyboards, a HHKB Pro 2 and a Real Force Round 1. By the way, both of which are no longer in production. But despite all of that, many would gladly find those donors and make this a reality. Zanda has been working on this for some time, and I think it looks great. This is a project that I will be following, and you should too if you care about Topra, HHKBs, and the continued option for modability. Let's switch to the man of the hour, Mr. Ryan Norbauer. In 2016, Ryan launched the first round of the NorbaTouch. It was formerly known as the Norbauer NovaTouch case, but let's be real, that doesn't roll off the tongue quite as nicely. After 3.1415926 rounds, he moved on to the Norba Force and Heavy 6 keyboards. Ryan was now a man on a mission, and the mission was taking Topra keyboards and putting them into cases he designed. At first, Ryan was telling us, he probably wouldn't consider designing a case for the FC660C because he doesn't use that board, and the HHKB seems a bit unfeasible. But I like to think, collectively, as a community, we wore away at him until it became an obsession of his to take upon this challenge. I'm not gonna lie, I think it's fair to say even after doing 3 Topra boards, the community felt that tackling the HHKB case would be a huge hurdle, absolutely gargantuan. Well, Ryan's done it. After all these years, he has just dropped the motherlode of all Topra interest checks. The interest check for the Heavy Grail. So what does the Heavy Grail feature? It features a custom one-piece injection molded switch slider plate and ABS resin to replicate best as possible the feel and sound of the original within a custom metal housing, a version for both the HHKB Pro 2 and for the HHKB Pro 3 Classic, acoustic dampeners to minimize internal sound reflections, signature Norbauer styling featuring compound curves and a steel rear weight. The best of all, the Heavy Grail will be made entirely in the USA, from the plastic in the plate to the rubber in the bump-ons. From Ryan's interest check post on Keep Talk, we find out some interesting behind-the-scenes information. For example, we learned that Ryan has spent nearly $40,000 in R&D costs, and to be honest, I'd love to see a breakdown of what that is in terms of molding costs, machining costs on the 5-axis CNC mill, and other costs like this that may have been, because this may be the most, or one of the most intensive interest checks and soon to be group buys that has been undertaken by a single person in our hobby. The only other exception I can think of is Joe, aka Ellipse of Model F Keyboards, doing the Kish Saver replicas, but maybe that can be a Control F video for another day. The technical approach section in the interest check to this keyboard is worth the read. He does recognize the unusually technical challenges in front of him, mostly the plate. That's such a big issue. With HHKBs, the plate is integrated with the top housing. It's all one piece, top and plate. Ryan decided to take the sensible decision and separate it into its own piece. Ryan actually does mention previous attempts to make the plate made of milled aluminum, which is referring to what Massdrop did, and yeah, that ended up with some bad acoustics. The custom one-piece injection molded switch slider plate will be made in the US by a factory that specializes in ultra-precision medical parts. My guess is a good deal of the costs is the quality of the factory to match the tolerances Ryan desires, in addition to how well the tooling must be made in order to make the plates feel as good as possible when putting in your sliders. So you may be wondering, why a plastic plate? Well, a huge part of why the HHKB is loved by so many is that typing feel, the typing feel on the plastic plate. And I applaud Ryan for his recognition of this and his work to bring a plastic injection molded plate for a custom HHKB to reality. One minor misstep Ryan may have made is rendering the plate pink, because come on, who now doesn't want a pink ABS plate on a white Heavy Grail? It looks absolutely fire. The Heavy Grail is a board that I will join the group buy for, because if my High Pro HHKB Pro 2 can be further improved, I will further improve it. The path toward a custom HHKB case has been quite the adventure in our community. Almost a decade in the making. From failed attempts to general disbelief in the possibility, we're finally at the point in time where we can see the possibility in front of us, whether it's through Zandat's case or through Ryan's case. I'm excited, and I hope you are too. Please consider checking out Ryan Norbauer's interest check in the description down below. It's pretty awesome. Even if you're not interested in Topra, I urge you to at least think about being interested in the whole process. That's it for the video today, and thank you so much for watching. And hey, let me know what you think of this in-depth look plus history kind of thing I'm trying out with this new Control F show kind of thing. Leave your comments below if this case interests you and why, and what you think of Control F, this new little thing I'm doing. I love to read all your comments in my videos because I want to hear your thoughts. So I hope you enjoyed this video and keep on keyboarding.